Now that we've gotten episode 4 for Daredevil Born Again, I think it's time I give my initial review on the episode and the show's current progress, even though no one asked. And before you say it, yes, I am biased towards Marvel and the stuff we've been getting lately, but I won't let that bias influence the writing for any of my videos on the series. Instead, I'm judging the show on not only its own merit, but also the merit of the original show that came before it, since it is a continuation and all. Also, if you're gonna disagree with my opinions on this, feel free to give me a sound argument before you tell me to keep myself safe. Now with all that out of the way, let's get into what my take is for episode 4. But first, allow me to introduce the sponsor for today's video, which would have to be my own channel. Please subscribe. And before you ask me in the comments, yes, I am that desperate for your subscription. Not desperate enough to do this though.
There are regulars here. $5 a month.
Oh right, also check out my Patreon, it's the third link down below, and you get all these benefits right here. Now before we get into the review, I think it's best to explain why I had the thumbnails like this for the past 2 videos. I don't like the show, or more specifically, I don't like the direction it's been heading. I like the fact that the show was made, and I adore the fact that I was able to bring back the original cast. But what I don't like is the fact that it comes off as a poor imitation of the original. By the way, you're gonna hear me saying that term a lot throughout this video. The reason I call this show a poor imitation of the original is that even though it's a continuation of it, it doesn't share the same quality of writing that the original had. Mishandled character departures, repeated storylines with nothing new or interesting added to them, character inconsistencies, wasted characters and or plot devices, and useless CGI. All of these are things that came with the show that has dropped the ball in terms of writing since the first quarter of the first episode. Now of course you don't have to agree with me, in fact judging by the last 2 videos you probably won't, but I think it's important to state the problems with the show as I find it. Oh damn, my bad bro. Let's get into the review. After watching the episode, I personally think that it was pretty mid, but still the best one out of the 4. The conflict between Matt and Hector's niece, and the dinner between Wilson and Vanessa were honestly the best parts of the episode. I personally liked how we see the niece come to terms with the fact that Hector was murdered, and how Matt had to be the one to break the news and tell her that they need to hope someone will find his murderer. It was a pretty touching scene, and showed just how well Matt's character can be done when you're a good writer. Hell, I personally think it was the best scene in the entire episode. Of course, I'm not gonna let that distract me from the fact that this whole scene was built up on a foundation that included a wasted plot device, a repeated storyline that was less interesting than its predecessor, and a minor character inconsistency that I dare you to defend in the comments. So for this, I'm gonna have to bump this scene down to my second favorite, as it's now tainted. And no, I won't let any gender-bent blind lawyers talk me into saying otherwise. So get out of here. My next favorite scene would have to be when Wilson and Vanessa had dinner. I like that we saw another glimpse into Wilson's past as a child that we never really saw in the show. I love when writers do this, and you can bet I was grinning from ear to ear like this. But now that I've given the show its props, it's time to get into my critiques, or what the shows of the show would call petty complaints. My first complaint would have to be the way the writers try to use a literal felon to make me feel sympathy for how the system sucks. I mean, come on, you couldn't use someone that was actually innocent and just being framed due to corruption? This is exactly what they did in the first episode for the original show. It took the concept of corruption and showed how it can happen and how people react to it in an interesting and engaging way, and didn't just try to tug on my non-existent heartstrings about the system screwing them over. Now while I personally think that the system can be used to hurt you, it can also be used to help you if you know what you're doing, or if you know the right people. After all, you can't get mad at the game for losing. You can only try again with the knowledge of what you learned the last time you played. And besides, you mean to tell me with that many crimes under your belt, you didn't just stop for a second and think of what to do to improve your situation? Oh, and by the way, Hector could have been further used as a plot device character here. So yeah, they didn't even have to kill him off. Also, that homeless guy was a prick. My next complaint would have to be the scene with the D1 Glazer and Wilson. Now even though I think the scene was fairly well done, and the actors did a really solid job here, it just reminds me of the cringy scenes we got from bad Marvel movies, and even the good ones. While I personally think it was a really good scene for Division 1 Glazer's character development, I honestly believe it could have been executed a lot better. And hell, maybe in the next video, I'll showcase how I would have done it, but I doubt I'll have the time for that. Oh, and before I forget to make the joke, Division 1 Glazer's entire confession to Wilson is just like 6ix9ine in the courtroom. My third and final complaint is the way Frank Castle's character was utilized. It reminded me a lot of Foggy and Karen, and now that I think about it, the reason it reminded me so much of them was because it was practically the same thing. He only shows up in the beginning of the episode and is tossed to the side once the writers run out of their creativity juice. It just feels like I'm getting a repeat of the very thing that made me say the show kinda sucks from the start. And apparently Frank didn't kill Hector. It was a corrupt cop who worshipped the Punisher. It's revealed that Wilson has Adam and is keeping him alive. Matt is training like he's going back to being Daredevil after his conversations with Hector's niece, the homeless guy, and the Punisher. And I'll tell you that there's only 2 of them he should go back to being Daredevil for. Also, the Muse is getting busy with one of his masterpieces. My guess is that the next next episode will be the start of the storyline where Matt intermediately goes back to being Daredevil in order to stop the Muse, but Frank Castle is the one to finish the job. Wilson will somehow find a way to salvage the deal using the Muse as a political device to do so, and the idea will be Division 1 Glazers. The homeless guy will somehow get involved, and BB Report will showcase a couple of civilians and their testimonies regarding everything. Of course, Matt could also use this episode to get in touch with BB Report and have her do some work to help find Muse or lure him into a trap, but I honestly doubt that will happen. Of course, these predictions are only built on the assumption that the writers would have started taking their cues from the original, but at this point I don't really expect much. My final thoughts regarding this episode is that even though it's the best one, it's still only the best because it's compared to the other three, and because of the good scenes I mentioned earlier. And again, if you disagree with this opinion, just eat a Snickers bar and subscribe. You'll feel instantly better. Also, why are you still here? I already said I wasn't gonna argue this. Wait, no! Real quick, if y'all enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe so I can flex on the hoes and the haters. Also, follow my socials so that you'll know when I post a new video. And if you really enjoy my content, then consider checking out my Patreon, where I give weekly behind the scene updates, as well as an archive for all my videos. You can also get your name featured on the end credits, as well as early access to the first 2 minutes of all my videos, which also include this one. Oh, and before I forget, you also get access to exclusive videos that are going to be Patreon only. Think of it like the last episode for SpongeBob if it was behind a paywall. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.